appointment this morning, so he sends his apologies. We wanted to come together this morning to talk to you a little bit and show you some examples of some of our STEAM projects that are happening or that have happened already in our school. And when we talk about design thinking, how that plays into all of our projects that we have. So this is something, this is the design process, and so we keep this at the center of when we think about these projects and what we want the kids to reflect upon. So we want them to know when they're given a STEAM project or a design challenge, that they're going to ask questions. Okay, and what is it that they're being asked to solve? They have to then imagine what that would look like. They have to actually draw a sketch or try to plan something out. And then of course there's always the back and forth, because you might plan something, young kids want to go right to the building phase. Older kids have a little bit more patience. But eventually, once they start to construct something, they might realize, well, this is working or it's not working, and have to go back and forth. And that relates to almost everything we do in real life today, right? No one ever does something or thinks about something and then gets it right the first time. So what we'd like to explain to you is we have two projects. One of them, and Mrs. David and Mrs. Erdman, we had a project, it was called the Kindergarten Fairy Tale Project, where, and I will let Mrs. Dickon explain, but it encompassed language arts, art, there was technology in it, so this really was all encompassing of our STEAM initiative.
So, good morning. Much like STEAM, you're going to have to heat the teapot before the steam comes out. So we decided to kind of heat the teapot in kindergarten. Every year we do fairy tales. It's been going on for years. The children, it's a good way to start with a familiar story and let them explore plot and characters and retelling and just love of literature. They always act out, or they've been for years, acting out the fairy tales during the week. This year, we, instead of teacher making props and those kind of things and leaving that at the dollar store, we decided to have the kids look around the classroom. So they would find paper plates or whatever they could to make a mask. We made houses of bricks and built things with Legos for the Three Billy Goats gruff. Then we kind of had to start talking about what kind of puppet we needed to go over the Legos. If we were going to walk on it, we would need to use the wooden blocks. Some of that kind of critical thinking came in. And we were able to work collaboratively. We passed the baton on to art and technology to take them a little further with their fairy tale unit.
Okay, hi everybody. So every year I do a castle project which builds on the kindergarten fairy tale unit, and the kids learn how to draw castles, and it's very exciting for them, and they come away with successfully being able to draw a castle. So this year I wanted to change it up a little bit, especially because of our STEAM initiative, and break the kids down into groups of two. So both kindergarten classes were broken up into groups of two and given cardboard pieces that they had to figure out how to make a castle that stands. It had to be a freestanding castle. So they had to attach with glue and work together, and there were lots of tries and risks and fails, and finally they did it, and they put together these amazing constructions that were all really different, and everyone kind of figured it out differently. Once they were all built and standing, then they got to paint and put in the cones and make flags and this kind of thing. So it was a really exciting project for them, where they had to do a lot of critical thinking and collaborating. They're collaborating. I was telling everybody last time I talked about this that I was learning something from the 5-year-olds who are putting together these castles and working together and to do something really fun and exciting. Just to take that one step further, we, this is Pauline and I, we made these boards, painted these boards with a path and placed the castles on the board. They're in the kindergarten classrooms now. And
So as part of technology class, I've been teaching the kids programming. So in the lower school, every grade level is learning how to program a variety of robots, but the kindergarten has learned how to program a Bluebot, or sometimes they call it a Bebot, it's a little different version. And so it really is sequential thinking, learning about which way, they have to think about steps. Are they going forward, backward, north, south, east, west, left, right? So they're learning all of that. And so now that they had all of their castles, each class put their castles on this board that Ms. Urban was talking about, so that they had their own fairy tale land. And so the Bluebot, I don't know if you can tell from the picture, you're able to dress it up. And so they were able to make the Bluebot and like a sleeve, so that you could, and you have a Bluebot? Oh, here you go. So that is that's our Bluebot. And so they were able to dress it up, and then once it went into the classroom with the classroom teachers, now they were able to use their programming skills that they learned to kind of tell a story about everything. So maybe the Bluebot was the prince or some character in a story, and so they had to travel through fairy tale land to get from point A to point B. And they would do this, it's in the classroom, so it's immersed in what they're doing. And so I think that they've had a lot of benefits from that, but they really enjoyed doing that.
Yes. It was kind of a surprise to bring it back in, and just because that was kind of a next phase for us. And so, in thinking about it, they've been able to, sometimes they use it for storytelling and a little bit of how-to, like how to get from this place to that place starts our math vocabulary of first, next, last, and sequential thinking. Sometimes we put, right now you can see there are little icons on the board, sometimes we put sight words, and they simply have to try to figure out which word they're going to and get their bot to that. So we've been able to use it in a lot of different ways, and it's kind of fun that it was a longer process, and we were able to now go from orally retelling a story to writing the story about our fairy tale.
So the key with this really is it's how to tie everything in to the curriculum so that you're enhancing the kids' understanding of everything that they're doing. So that was one project that we had fun.
April McCarthy, Stan Lee. Our STEAM project was less planning and designing, but more of a thought process. How do you use that engineering thoughts, and how do you go through and analyze things? So we took the students, Dan's 6th grade math class and mine, and we combined them together. And they had, earlier in the year, reviewed and studied decimal operations, and we were preparing to go into a geometry unit, and without any lessons ahead of time, just knowing their background knowledge of what they had in the curriculum and what skills they had, we paired them up, someone from my class with someone from his class, and said, okay, you have 5 minutes to figure out how are you going to determine the radius of a sphere. You get to take one measurement. And then we took them into the lab. So real quick, brainstorm, what would you do, or listen to someone around you. I'll give you 1 minute to do it. No, talk about it, what would you do? How would you do it?
And they were given different size.
Yeah, we had different size spheres.
spheres.
How would you measure this, knowing all the materials that are available to you in a lab like that? What would you do? Go, I'm serious, 30 seconds, go. Talk. Or share ideas, or listen to someone else. Who wants to do this? Oh, she was the smartest. We're not the smartest 6th grader.
Maybe measure those sequences.
All right, so hold on.
Now I know you guys were talking about it because you did exactly what the teachers did. You all started laughing. Not all.
So we sent him into the lab with this thing. And going into this, when we planned this, Mr. Letter and Dan and myself, we came up with 3 really good ideas of how to do this. We're like, oh, well, they could just use one flat surface and put the sphere there and put another, like whiteboards, the little whiteboards, put another flat surface there and measure around and make sure it's parallel. And there you go, you have the diameter. Like, oh, you can just take a string and wrap it around it, unwrap the string, measure it, and once you have the circumference, we did provide them with a formula. They can then calculate the diameter or the radius. Wow. Boy, were we wrong.
I don't know that we thought. But, they did a lot of different things there, some very unique solutions. I was shocked at how well, like when we gave them 5 minutes, they just dove right in, went through it. We're very excited the whole time. They came up with lots of different methods, sticking pencils
Yep,
through the
we
middle.
had, this is one.
To try and find it.
Yeah.
Rolling it up or wrapping it with Play-Doh and
Yeah,
then
they-
unfolding it, measuring it. Someone even tried to use their hands there to
They did an estimate first this way, and then,
Probably my favorite one was somebody asked for a level. Okay, give you a level. And I asked him, what are you gonna do with that? And he said, well, I'm gonna put the level on top so I know that the pencil is perpendicular. He's gonna try and trace around it. Now, if you did that without it, you could easily be off just perfectly. And he did it that way and then just measured it across. And that was brilliant. So, no, I would never come up with that. So there were some really unique ones. Plumbing, did you want to talk about any of the?
Just go to that sheet or?
Okay, so then then we went into the classroom and some
Yeah,
of
so
them
we only
used
spent one 50-minute period in the lab, and that was it. That's all they had. But then we followed up with 2 more sessions in the classroom.
And they were very eager to all describe their methods. I was just so impressed with all of them through this whole thing. And then we talked about it and the difficulties, like with put a pencil through, it might look like it's through the middle, but it was really hard to find that center.
Yeah.
And we were great filling out the spreadsheet, but I think this is the exact moment that it stopped being fun for them when we started talking about the percent error, the statistical analysis of it. You can see it in the blood but we discussed that, and then the follow-up at the end, we had them fill out questionnaires like, what would you do differently? And up until this point, we thought they were great, and they were great too. But after all this discussion about error, what problems did you have using your method? None. How would you have done things differently? Use different methods? Or some of them were even, what problems did you have using this? None. Would you do anything differently? Nothing. No. But some kids actually did fill out some thoughtful responses too, but some of those were just fluff too. And it was an eye-opener for me because self-reflecting or reflecting back on this was a big part of it, and obviously the kids need work on that. Even though I was self-reflecting on theirs, was I really self-reflecting on mine or just reflecting about self-reflecting? Was this all a reflection on me? I don't know. But it's obviously something the kids that we need to work on, and we didn't get a chance to go back and redo it, but that would be the next project we do to actually implement our
Yeah, so we went through, like, well, what went well overall? I have to tell you, the teamwork was amazing, pairing them up like that. There was never any downtime. There were no distractions, no side conversations. They were always engaged. We expected a lot of playing, and we were really impressed with
Yeah, and
that.
honestly, I always feel so pressured to get through my curriculum that is there really time for a project like this? And this was a real eye-opener that this is definitely something worthwhile doing, and the kids really do learn from this. So it was good.
So part of our reflecting process is, one, we need to prod the students more at the end and get them to push themselves. And then the next one was, well, what's the next level? Where do we take it to? Do you want to?
Mr. Wade, Mr. Lederer had an idea of maybe next year having them use software to create,
After they do this project,
to have them use the 3D printer. And Mr. Wade can tell you more about that, of how to construct a sphere. And then,
Yeah.
so so it would be a parameter, yeah, I was gonna say, it would be, like, we give them one parameter, has to have a circumference of X. Well, you're probably not gonna program it with circumference, you're gonna program it, how do you program it? So this is an actual
Yeah.
sphere that was printed on our 3D
Yeah, in order to
printer.
actually do that, you have to know the height, the width, and the depth of the actual sphere. So that
It's
other
all the
math-
same, it's the diameter.
But
But they have to
we
figure
have
that out.
actually constructed using a couple different programs. I chiefly use Tinkercad, which is free and online, so it's readily available for the kids to kind of get into using. And I try to introduce how to use the 3D printer throughout different grades, so they kind of get a little bit of exposure to that.
So we plan to expand next year. Maybe even later this year.
So, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the different robots. You already saw the blue bot that went around, it's right here. But the way the robots are kind of embedded in our curriculum, it's very much scaffolded quite nicely. Because, for instance, the blue bot or the B bot, depending on which version the kids are using, is really simple to use because they're just, you press an arrow button and it tells you, okay, you're going to go one step forward or one step to the left or one step backwards. And you put in as many steps as you want. And the kids can very easily say, okay, I'm going to go forward 3 times and left twice. And it'll go forward 3 times and left twice. But it kind of gets them used to that sequential thinking and kind of how to do very simple programming using a really cool little robot. The next level up would be the Dash. Super cute. The really nice thing about this for the kids is that there are attachments that you can attach Legos on top and dress it up so it looks whatever way you want it to look. There are other things you can get. There's arms and stuff you can add to it, and it can talk to you and stuff. The programming involved for this is slightly more advanced, but not terribly complicated, where right now, is it second grade or second grade?
Second grade is learning how to program Dash. It's kind of, if you've ever heard of Scratch programming, it's that block-based programming. So it's high level for second graders, but it's still simple enough. The interface makes it really friendly for the kids.
Yeah. And so it's really kind of following the same ideas, like if you can tell it to go forward a couple of times and left a couple of times, you can kind of start programming it to kind of do really simple things, and you can eventually build on that to get to do even more advanced things and play sounds and do spins and all kinds of other stuff. Then on top of that, we have this guy. It's called the Spiro. Very similar to the Dash in terms of what the programming looks like, but this one is a little bit more hardy. Like I can actually drop this and it would be fine. I wouldn't recommend dropping that one. This one's also waterproof as well. And on top of that, there's the application of the Spiro EDU. Gives you real scientific data back after you run a program, so you can see what's the velocity of the Spiro when it was traveling from this point to that point, whether or not it dropped, what's the acceleration, where's the general orientation of the robot, like is it tipping or curving. And because it's waterproof, you can actually get it to do all kinds of cool water or wet experiments as well. And so this one, while right now 4th graders are learning how to use this with their Shiloh project that they are working through right now, it actually can go all the way up to 8th grade. And there's actually a couple cool ideas that I'm working on with the science department in order to use Spiro to kind of gauge different things when they start talking about physics and things like that. And then lastly, we have the Lego robots. Lego education system basically has a what's called their brick, and it's basically the brain of a robot. But because of the fact that it's all based on Legos, you can kind of build whatever you want out of it, and then do different projects based off of that. Chiefly, these are being used by the Lego robotics team and the Lego discovery classes, but we'll also be using it in lower school in 3rd, 4th grade, and 5th grade as well. So this is kind of the basic model of a robot you can build using the Lego Mindstorm kit, and it's what they like kind of give you a manual and you're like, build this, and it works out pretty well. But you can expand that and do something that's really kind of crazy looking. This is the current robot that we rebuilt for the Lego robotics team. And the really nice part about this is the programming language is also kind of simple to kind of get really started. You can get it to move really easily. It's again, kind of block-based, you drag and drop things in, and you kind of can do a little bit of trial and error to try different things out. But the really nice part is because of the Lego system, you can expand it to kind of take on any kind of form or shape you want. For instance, this actually has an attachment that we built that you can pop on, and this will actually work as a little system to drop something off the top. There's an arm that's attached to the front here, and you can actually build other attachments and attach different things to it. So the kids get really excited about being able to do different things and kind of make it their own and like dress it up. But the programming language itself, while it starts really simple, kind of the same way with the Sparrow, you can really expand it to really do very sophisticated things as well. So this one we're going to try to start testing out coming on Monday when I meet with the Lego team again, because we just finished rebuilding this one, so we're going to start trying out some new things. But it has all kinds of sensors too, like there's color light sensors, so I can actually track a line if I wanted to. There's a gyro sensor, so I can tell how far it's turned as well, so there's some feedback information I can get from that as well, and a lot of really other cool things you can do.
Mr. Reed, can you talk about like the board for people that aren't familiar with like
Yeah.
competition athlete? Like why all of those things and the attachments?
Yeah, so First Lego League, which is the kind of like national group that has a competition every year. This is the second year that we've actually competed as a school. But every year they come up with a new basic theme for the year. This year it was hydrodynamics, so everything was based around water and water cycle. And in August they released a board or a map that has a series of missions, usually somewhere between 15 to 20 missions. And the missions can be as simple as take this object and move it to this part of the table and drop it off. Or make this other thing move and it has some effect on the table. And the goal for the team is to build not only a robot, but build a robot and program it in a way that you can accomplish as many of the missions as you can. Because each one is worth a certain amount of points that you get a certain amount of time. It's 2.5 minutes to run your robot on the table and kind of compete and complete as many missions as possible. And so we were fairly successful in what we attempted to do this year. We tried our hand at, I think, 4 missions, and we're actually able to complete 3 of them when we're actually at the competition. But the goal is, if you build different attachments, you might be able to do another task easier rather than having to just find a different way to program it. So there are different conversations you can have with the kids about, do we want to program it differently or do we want to build something different to accomplish what we're trying to do? And so right now, because the competition is actually passed, we're in this phase of looking at what we did in the past to kind of improve on that and kind of self-reflecting. I took videos while we were there, so we spent weeks going over the video and kind of discussing areas where we could improve. Because not only do you have to do the robot part, that's only like a third of the competition, there's also a project that the kids have to plan and design that has nothing to do with robotics at all. It's just based on the theme. So this year it had to do with the water cycle. So you have to find a problem with the water cycle or water system and figure out a solution to figure that out. And they wanted to do one on improving groundwater and eliminating pollution in groundwater. And so they were discussing and had to plan out a solution for that. And so teams take different approaches for that, and they also get judged kind of very, very nicely. It's called Core Values for First Lego League, but it's very similar to the Shape and Values virtues. So they have really nice shared thing. Yeah.
When does the next year's challenge come out? When do they come out?
They release the kind of theme at the end of May, but the map itself, like you don't know what the missions are until late August. So we can kind of start putting together a team or kind of idea of a team, but you won't know what you're going to actually be asked to do in terms of the project or the mission until August.
And then the competition is November?
Yeah, for our part of the country, we end up competing usually in early to mid-November, so we don't get a lot of time.
That's the reason.
But it's also that's the same for all the other teams in this area, like it gets released at the same time for everyone, and everyone's competing at the same time, so it's kind of, you're on equal footing that way.
What I have seen, and I have been to the last two leagues with Chapin, that the school teams competing are kind of at a disadvantage because schools do not start till September. However, like Girl Scout teams and some of the teams which they start in like July and right after.
Yeah, and part of that is, not that they can actually do any of the mission stuff, but they can get a head start of like kind of building a team identity and kind of getting geared up for that. And especially because this is only our second year, and I had all but one new student this year. Everybody else graduated last year, so I was basically starting over from scratch this year. And so kind of rebuilding back up and kind of hoping to kind of drag it on through for the next few years to kind of build up that kind of team identity and get kind of interest generated that way. But we had a lot of interest. I have maybe about 15 kids show up.
How is that question, how you decide who you?
Well, this year, because I didn't know how many were going, I said everyone can come join on during flex, and then I cut it off at everyone in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade could go technically to a competition, and then we had a couple kids who couldn't make it because they had swim meets or whatnot, and so I had 5th graders start kind of filling it, because they're allowed to take 10 kids to a competition. And if we get to the point where we have like 20 or more kids, then we can fill out 2 teams, but what else things were. I wasn't sure how many we were gonna have, because we had one returning kid, so.
I'm just curious about the gender makeup. Do you find that females are coming in, or is it?
I actually have a fair number of girls this year. Last year we had 2 girls. This year, I'd say about a third of the group of kids I have are females. And they seem to be more engaged and doing a lot more and stuff with guys. They really just want to build with Legos, more or less.
And I think what's gonna help with that too is in the lower school, when they're less concerned about things that they might be concerned about in the upper school, gender-wise, everyone is getting the opportunity to work with the different variety of robots, so there's much more excitement around it when they're young. And so a lot of the girls, for example, are really good at it and they get very interested. And so they're learning to work collaboratively. And so hopefully that'll trickle up to when they get.
And the major winners that
Oh, yeah.
were all girls.
Yeah,
Female teams.
the vast majority of the teams that end up doing really well end up being female heavy. Yeah. Any other questions? Robots or?
I just have one quick,
Yeah.
not anything major, but the round person is bulletproof.
Yes.
How do you control him?
So there's an app that you program, and you can actually, there's also like a remote control, so you can kind of like remote control it, an iPad or an iPod or a phone. But the motor inside will kind of spin it, and that's one of those things where it moves very differently on carpet than it does on a hardwood floor, as it will in water. So you kind of like be able to go like 5 feet on land will look very different trying to go 5 feet on water. So kind of.
Okay, I was just wondering how
And
to
they
deal with
also,
that
well,
difference.
Zero, which we don't have them here right now, but they also have attachments. So for example, they have something called a nubby, which is like a rubber casing for it, so that if you're outdoors or in certain environments, like you can get better traction. You can also, they have one where you can put paint on it and have a big mat on the floor and help the kids, like they have to program it to make geometric shapes in art. They have a chariot which goes over it, which also has parts so that you can connect Lego to it. So there's a variety of ways of dressing that up as well.
Great, thank you. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.